Bonjour, hi, and welcome to the very first episode of the Stepover Podcast. Oh, stop it, studio audience. You get out of here. Go on, get. Anyways, welcome to the show. Hopefully, if you're joining us right now, it's because you want to hear what's going on with soccer in Ottawa. And I know it's early March, it's still cold, it's still a pandemic, but regardless, there's a lot starting to happen, enough that for a second, you might even start to think things are getting back to normal. If you play, rec leagues across the city are starting registration now, planning their upcoming seasons. We just saw the Canadian national women's team play in the She Believes Cup, where Ottawa's Vanessa Gilles had a breakout performance in just her third game with the national team in the game against the United States. She played one game before having to return to France to her club team, FC Girondins de Bordeaux. With university teams, Carleton and Ottawa, we've seen player commitments and transfers for the upcoming season. The Carleton women are going to have players like Missy Balachorek transfer in from Texas Rio Grande Valley, and Raquel Costa Correa transferring from Youngstown State University. The Ottawa women's side had a bunch of new commitments announced recently. Nami Nguyen is coming from Saskatoon. Julianne Lacasse is based here in Ottawa. Charity Cormier from Cherrybrook, Nova Scotia. They'll all be new to the team this year. If you choose to follow this podcast, I hope you do. Hopefully names like these and more will be a bit more familiar to everyone, because these are all top quality players. And honestly, we're so lucky to have them playing at the level that they are in Ottawa. And that leads me to the first question that I want to throw out to all of our new listeners, and I know there's so many of you out there, and we'll throw the question out on all the socials too, is what level of soccer do you want more coverage of? And not just from this podcast, but in general. You don't see enough of it, you don't hear enough of it. Do you want to know about university and college soccer? Do you want to know about the regional clubs? West Ottawa, OSU, Internationals, Gloucester, you name it. Do you not hear enough about Atlético Ottawa? Maybe you're not satisfied with the level of coverage there. That's okay. We want to know. Anyways, let us know on Twitter, Instagram, or email us at thestepoverpodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear what you think. Now, what I want to talk about today, though, we're actually going to go back to the end of January. On the 29th of that month, the Canadian Premier League announced the draft selections for the 2021 CPL USports Club Draft. So if you're not familiar with the CPL USports Draft, that's okay, we'll get you caught up. So the Canadian Premier League has a partnership with USports, which is the governing body for all university sports in Canada. And this year, 16 players were drafted in a 2-round draft. The first overall pick was Thomas Gardner by FC Edmonton. He's out of UBC. Atlético Ottawa drafted number 2, and with that pick they chose Carleton's Cris Malekos. Ottawa also picked 15th, and with that pick they chose Reggie Lorea. He's out of York University, and if that name sounds familiar, his brother Richie plays for Toronto FC. I mean, if the talent level is anything like his brothers, Atlético Ottawa's got a great pick there. So what happens next with these draft picks is they get brought into the training camps of their respective clubs. So Chris and Reggie are going to be joining Ottawa. And if they do well, then they can actually get signed to what's called a development contract, which is really neat and unique in sports in Canada. So with the partnership in place with USports, Canadian Premier League development contract is essentially a scholarship, which gets paid into the player's student account. So they come in, and the club can put a maximum of $10,000 into their student account. And the kicker is, when the season's over, the player can then go back to school. They haven't lost their amateur status that they need to continue playing youth sports, so they can play with their university team and get experience at the pro level. So that's something that had not been an option until the first youth sports draft in 2018. And the players that get picked, they're not token players. There's people who, not everyone gets signed to a contract at all. Some players get drafted, they go to the training camps, they don't get kept on. That's fine, they go back to school. But every year, several players do get kept on for either developmental contracts or they get signed to fully professional contracts too. Carleton's Gabe Bitar was the first ever USports draft pick, and he got signed to a developmental contract with Cavalry FC in Calgary. Players like Peter Schall, Christian Ochsner, Zach Verhoeven, Abubakar Sissoko, Easton Ungaro, players like that have all come out of the USports draft, gone pro. Joel Waterman, drafted by Cavalry in 2018, he's now playing with Montreal in MLS. So the players that get drafted, these are serious players, top quality players with serious potential. So for our inaugural episode, I had the fantastic good fortune to have a chat with Ottawa's first ever draft pick, Cris Malekos, as well as his coach at Carleton, Kwesi Loney, himself top quality. He was the 2019 USports Coach of the Year and has turned Carleton into a bit of a powerhouse. So on a cold February evening, I whipped up a hot chocolate, opened up Zoom, and had a really nice chat with Cris Malekos and Kwesi Loney. Here you go. So you're my first guest. So really the honor is more yours than mine, being my first guest on what's going to be a really, obviously just one of the big podcasts in the sports world. So I guess I'll start. Cris, you are a Ravens defender, and you're also Atlético Ottawa's first ever draft pick. So congratulations on that.
Thank you very much.
And Kwesi, you're the director of soccer operations for the men's and women's soccer teams, and you're the reigning USports Coach of the Year. So congratulations to you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
So to get things going, it's -20 out there. I've got my hot chocolate. Is there anything you guys like to have, on cold days that kind of get you warmed up?
Maybe a coffee is always nice.
Yeah.
Coffee is always nice. If not, I'm more of a just water guy pretty much, but
okay.
Maybe a little boring, but that's what I prefer for sure.
Right on.
Yeah.
And you, Kwesi?
I'm actually pretty big into teas. I like different types of tea. I just try out different ones.
Any favorites?
On a cold day. Right now I'm into this honey lemon ginger infused tea. We have a diffuser for it, so it's just different, something to try.
Right on. Okay, I like it.
Yeah.
So first off, Cris, so you were drafted number 2 overall in this year's CPL USports draft. That's awesome. Can you tell us how you found out about being drafted first, and do you remember what your first reaction was to that?
Well, I found out through the TV. The reaction was crazy. I was pure enjoyment. I was screaming. I remember I had to replay what Mista said because I was just full of joy. I was screaming. But leading up to it, I was definitely a little nervous. Obviously didn't know what was happening. But the day of, I did get a box in front of my door, and it told me not to open it till 3 p.m. So I didn't. And no, pretty much. I want to see if I was drafted from the TV, and then the TV literally, I figured out live, and still a little bit of a shock. I'm not a little bit of shock, but pure excitement, I would say. And no, it was just a huge honor, especially because it was from the hometown club, and any team that would have picked me, I would have been happy, but because it was Atlético, because it was hometown, it was definitely a special place in my heart. And just being able to have a chance to represent the city, the school, and just the town and everything is just a great honor, I would say.
When you get ready for the draft, what's the process like getting ready? Because you have to declare for the draft first, right?
Right.
Are people in contact with you ahead of time?
You mean coaches, or you mean who do you
anyone?
mean
People from the league, coaches.
In my case, no one was really in contact with me before during the whole week, during the whole process. It was more just the draft that told me if I was picked or not. I know. I'm not sure, actually. I can't speak for anyone, but I know I'm sure some people have maybe got a phone call from a coach or two a few days before, tell them that they might get picked for the draft or something. But in my case, it was definitely just finding out during the live broadcast, and that was about it. Pretty much. And
were you with anyone when you found out?
I was with a few of my very good buddies. My parents were at the cottage, so I didn't want to be alone for that moment for sure. So I invited two of them over, and I was very happy they came for sure.
Right. Well, that's great that you got to share with someone. That must have been a really great moment for you.
Yeah. I know it was a surreal moment for sure. And like I said, just an honor, really.
And Kwesi, so Cris was the first of 3 of your players to get drafted. I mean, that's got to be kind of nice for you too, because I mean, you're the guy who's kind of bringing these players along and getting to this moment. Like, what was each of those moments like for you?
I mean, I was extremely proud of my players. It was an exciting moment for the program, for the university. I was very happy for them. I mean, I know, the amount of work that they've put in, day out and day in our program. I don't think many people get to see that. Everybody sees the end result, which is the games, but you don't get to really see the commitment that these guys put in, right? Because they are student athletes. So you're talking about carrying a full course load during the day, and then finding time to make training sessions and do the extra training as well to make sure that they're at their optimal best. And I mean, I think it's just a true testament to the work they've put in, and I think it's a testament to the program. I mean, obviously I congratulate my 3 players. We had 2 other players that were in the draft that unfortunately weren't selected this year, but I mean, we've created quite the culture within our program where it forces everybody to compete and be at their best. And I like to think that our 3 players that got selected, and obviously Cris, being the second pick in the draft, they benefit from that environment, right? It's super intense, very competitive, and it pushes them to have to be consistent, to have to be at their best all the time. So I think for them, it's a great testament to their commitment to the program, to commitment to excellence, and to get that recognition of 3 players drafted and Cris going number 2 overall to the hometown team is a fantastic moment for us in our program. So I'm very happy for the guys.
So, I mean, 2020 wasn't a normal year for anyone. And, for an athlete who's getting ready for a moment like this, there was no season for you. So what's really this question is for both of you. Like, what's the last year been like with a program like Carleton's?
I mean, I'll start very quickly. I mean, obviously we got the news of the pandemic when it hit back in, last March, and we were in the middle of our off-season training, and I don't think anybody expected it to last as long as it has. And, the implications it's had on sport. But for us, through the summer, I mean, we were still able to train and we were able to play a little bit. Our proximity to Quebec allowed us to participate in some of the PLSQ games there, which allowed our players to continue to play and train in that environment. And then in the fall, at this time, I mean, most universities were still allowing social distance training. So, we were still together. We were still training to a certain extent. And I think the guys just appreciate just being together. I mean, they knew that we couldn't full out train and be as competitive as we wanted to be, but we were still able to be creative and work on different elements of our game and, just be around each other. I think that says a lot about us. And we only ended training probably the week before Christmas. So we trained right up until that moment, moving indoor, training, under the guidelines of the Ottawa health officials and, under the protocols that were in place by our university. And our guys did a great job adhering to it. It wasn't always ideal, but they knew that, just being able to be on the field with a ball in this particular time was a gift, and we want to just appreciate the opportunity to be together. So,
yeah, and just adding on to what Kwesi said, it was definitely a week-to-week basis to figure out if we're able to play or not. So every week it was just our motivation and practice. We knew it was, as Kwesi said, a gift. So that just added to the intensity of practicing because we knew any week we could have been back at home and without a ball, with our feet, without playing with our friends and our teammates. So it was definitely grateful also to OSU to let us be able to train and have a team to play into the PLSQ. And with Carleton as well during our the fall months, it was perfect. It was perfect. I know a lot of teams around the country weren't able to play, so us being able to train together and having our Carleton team be pretty local, it was nice because a lot of our guys, we were able to still see each other when we were practicing, and it was great.
Okay, yeah. So you also play with OSU as your club team, and the other 2 draft picks, Stefan Karajivanovic, I believe is his name, Antonio Mikhail. Yeah. You all play with OSU, and I think so one thing about this draft is that people who are used to watching the NHL draft, the NBA draft, you come from a school, you don't also have a club, but you have a school and a club. Maybe more for Kwesi, how do you
do you have a lot of communication with the clubs that your players are also involved with? And how has that been this past year?
Yeah, I mean, normally, before we break for the summer, I mean, we always have meetings with the players. We talk about, what our summer programming will be. I mean, we do have still requirements of our players, more, gym training and whatnot that they have to adhere to for the summer. But then we always also talk about where they're going to play. I mean, we try not to put too many commitments on them from a playing perspective, because I think the summer is a time for them to relax and enjoy time with friends and whatnot. But, obviously this summer was a bit different with the pandemic. So, we had a conversation as a team and as a group, and the opportunity with OSU moving into the PLSQ league in Quebec opened up, and we discussed it as a group, and what everybody's comfort level was in terms of playing and engaging in this league. And don't get me wrong, not all of our players participated because everybody was in different circumstances, but we had quite a bit that allowed us to form the nucleus of that team. But we did have players that played with us that were from Ottawa, but like from the University of Guelph. We had players from Queens. We had some players that returned from the NCAA. So it was, it was a bit of a mix. It was kind of like, of who's who from Ottawa, soccer. So it was kind of cool to kind of have that experience with some players in the summer. But, the bulk of the team was Carleton players as well.
So outside of soccer, like what have you guys been doing to kind of keep yourself busy? Has it been like 100% soccer, or like what's kind of outside to keep you guys sane during this time?
Do you want to go, Kwesi, or do you want me to go?
Well, I'll let Cris go. I'm interested to hear this myself. So I'll see what Cris comes up with here.
Well, especially considering my circumstances last year where I wasn't able to participate in the national tournament due to injury. The whole year for me, seeing my teammates play in a national tournament without me, I was pretty devastated, to say the least. So ever since I was back, I was full throttle going into practice, doing my own trainings, been running like a maniac, been doing all my own personal training, touching the ball and all individual training. So for me, it's definitely been just a chance to improve like individually, and definitely studying the game of football to another level, especially without as many distractions, where going to school, and literally because you could do school online and stuff like that, makes your day a lot shorter, as in you don't have to commute, you don't have too many arrangements and stuff like that. So this year for me has definitely been a lot more football oriented, definitely just training my body to get to the level I want to be and get back into we're hoping for we were supposed to host nationals this year, so that's all I was looking forward to as well. So that was my main motivation. And then once we found out that the season was canceled, it's still we knew there was a possibility to draft, and I knew it was going into my fourth year of university and finishing that up. So it was definitely football oriented for sure.
So there was no like binging Tiger King, Mandalorian, none of that.
I watched The Last Dance. I got Michael Jordan one.
That was good.
But, no, definitely just soccer related. I'm not the biggest TV guy. Definitely finishing up my school has been, I had a few big classes in the first semester that I had to focus on. So it was definitely a balance between school and soccer, and that was about it. But that's what I love to do. So I'm not complaining at all,
So Kwesi, was that the right answer?
Yeah, I mean that's a great answer for me. I love to hear that. I mean, when we were initially put in lockdown back in, I guess, March, when the pandemic initially hit, I mean, we moved seamlessly into the online training, so through platforms such as Zoom, and I think a lot of clubs, a lot of universities did that as well. Like we were doing, I want to say 2 to 3 times a week. Just technical work on the ball, right? And it was fantastic to see the commitment from our players. I mean, they were there at, I think it was 10 o'clock in the morning till 11, and we tried to run it as close to a regular practice as possible. Like we had full warm-ups, we had activation, we did cool downs. I mean, we did a lot of ball work. We had guys that were outside, guys that were inside, but we were able to do it with only 3 yards of space. So we got really creative, and the guys all adhered to it, and it was fantastic. And then obviously we moved into the summer, we were able to do a lot more. And then at this period of time, presently, I mean, we felt like, a lot of athletes now are getting a little bit of Zoom fatigue or online fatigue, because everything is online, right? You have classes online, interactions are online, family gatherings are online. So we didn't want to, overburden them with continued work. So what we have actually done, and we've created like a guest speaker series. And what we've done, we've brought in different individuals from the game to speak to our players, just, have them expand their mind a little bit more about, different perspectives of the game. Like, for example, we had Julian de Guzman, who spoke to the team a couple of weeks back. And, he just shared his experience, right, which was invaluable to our players, right, to see and hear a Canadian player reach the feats that he did, and to share his journey and how he was successful is extremely valuable to our players. And we also had Carleton University, who is the retired, international FIFA referee, right? And just her giving us insight into the psyche of a referee was incredible for our players, right? So we didn't feel like everything needed to be on the ball directed by us as coaches. We felt like the players, as Cris indicated to you, could take a lot of that on their own, and let them, dictate, how often they were doing it, when they wanted to do it. And we felt like that's worked out really well, because it puts the onus on them, right? If this is important to you, if this is a passion for you, then use it as an outlet. We didn't want it to become a burden, right? We wanted them to use it as an outlet, but we wanted to create other means for players to be together, to see each other, and also to think about the game and expand their minds, on a different level outside of just, playing or just watching a match.
Kwesi, when you first saw Cris play, what did you want him on your team? Like, what qualities did he bring that made you say, like, I need him to be on my Raven squad?
Yeah, I mean, very unique about Cris, and I always like to share this, is because Cris was not, we didn't recruit Cris directly. Like, Cris came out for us in an open tryout, and out of 65, 70 players that we had in a very small training session, I mean, he stood out, right? And then after that, I think what ended up happening was that we invited him out to another training session in an ID camp. And again, this is still not amongst our active roster. This is still against trialists. And he was consistent. He showed his ability to play consistently. And what Cris brought for us was that physical presence. I mean, he was dominant in the air. He was excellent in the tackle, had a exceptional work rate about him. And you could just see that in every element of the game. And what was surprising for us was also his ability to score, to create chances in the attacking third, which was very unique from a defender of his quality and his style. And I mean, also realizing that for Chris's first year was only my second year as a head coach, right? So that second year for me was the year that I think we brought in like 16 first-year players. I really changed the whole dynamic of the team and the program and how we trained and how we did a lot. So Cris was there, in my kind of real first hands-on year as a head coach, right? And I always knew, what I wanted from my team, the kind of characteristics, and Cris definitely suited, my type of center back. I mean, I played that position when I was at university and all through my career, and the qualities that Cris displayed was something that we knew that we needed to have within our team as a foundation, as a backbone for us to have success.
Cris, during your time at Carleton, what have you learned from Kwesi?
Definitely a lot of his mentality, and just every time he talks, you could tell the whole squad's just focused on what he has to say, because he's played at a high level himself, and we know that he's been through many experiences related to football and just related to life itself. So he's been a great mentor to the whole team. So everything he says, we all try to like soak it in like a sponge, I would say. And you could tell that he wants us to grow as a team, but not only that, but we could tell that he wants to grow as a coach himself, which just motivates us even more. Every training, you could tell that he's trying to add some new stuff, add some keep making us think, keep making us improve ourselves. So no, definitely all around. Yeah.
Okay. So Kwesi, is that what you were going for?
Yeah, I mean, when you ask that kind of question, you never know what your answer you're going to get, right? I mean, I'm very emotional. I'm very explosive. I'm very passionate. So, I like to, my players get to see every aspect of me. So
right on. So Cris, this podcast is going to be listened to by thousands of Atlético Ottawa fans. We want you to really sell yourself. How would you describe yourself as a player?
Definitely, as Kwesi mentioned, physical, dominant in the air, winning. I want to win every tackle. If one person gets by me, I remember that moment, and I'm never gonna let that happen again. Is in my mind. That's my mentality. Go 100% during the whole game. Leave it every game I think of. I feel like it's my last game in a way. That's how I want to play. Just present. As Kwesi's mentioned many times, you never know who's watching during our game. So definitely, I want to impress everyone that comes in, and hope to inspire little kids to do the same. Just play your heart out, do the very best you can, and people are going to recognize that, and that's what I want to bring to the table.
Kwesi, is that about accurate?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's important to understand with Cris is Cris is Ottawa. Like, Cris is, I mean, you look at young kids today in the club system, and that was Cris, right? I mean, Cris was a young player, grew up here in the city, played Ottawa Internationals, played his football locally. I mean, from my understanding, didn't go through the whole the OYSL or the OPDL structure. Went to Carleton University because he went here for academics and he wanted to play football. And then he was committed to the program. And every year, I mean, Cris was an all-star in our program. Every year, Cris showed how valuable he was to our program. So I feel when, the fans of Ottawa should see Cris, as and see themselves in him, right? Because he is, he went to our local high schools, he went to our elementary schools, he played in our local football leagues, and now Cris has an opportunity to step on the field as a professional, playing for his home city. And I think that's something that every young player in Ottawa needs to aspire to, and understand that, not every pathway, is the same. And Cris took a path not taken by many, and he saw it through to the very end, and now he sits here before you as the first draft pick ever for Ottawa. I mean, that's a incredible story, and I think every young player, every family, every parent should be able to believe in that and see that in themselves too as well.
Cris, that actually reminds me that you do go to school. What program are you in?
I'm in business management.
Okay. Do you see that as being part of your post-soccer career?
Yeah, definitely. The business side of things was my only interest in terms of academics and following that path, and I like it because it's very general, but at the same time you could focus into many different aspects of the business side. My dream as a kid was always to play professional soccer. And I knew that to do that, I wanted to at least get my academics and get my university degree for that to happen. So I definitely want to focus on my academic side. But now that it's nearing its end, it's definitely all football. And then once football is done, maybe even a business side of football would be interesting to me as well, because I love the game. I love being around the game. I love everything that has to do with it, the fans, the supporters, the clubs, everything. So it's just being in a program that could make me also stay into the sport and being kind of do whatever I want when I'm done. It's just a great opportunity, and I'm happy that I went through this path, and I have no regrets for sure.
You both kind of talked about pathways, actually. And so Kwesi, like you were a player at Carleton as well. I think you graduated in 2002?
Yeah, thanks for dating me there. But yes, I did. I mean, I'm originally...
It's not too long before me, so it's kind of dating myself too.
Yeah, I mean, I played for the program, under Coach Sandy Mackey, who's my mentor as well. And I graduated, and I was working, but I always coached on the side. I mean, I coached, in the Ottawa Fury Youth program, the Youth Academy, when they first came out and they were playing in the Super Y League. I coached with the Ottawa Royals for a season. I played in local clubs here in the city. I had 1 year where I played for the Ottawa Wizards, in the CPSL. I mean, that was a lot of fun. But then coaching wise, I mean, I like to think that my journey was unique in the sense that coaching, I never really thought that I would, be coaching at this level. I never thought I'd be coaching, full time as I am now. But what ended up happening was that opportunities kept, popping up, right? And the doors kept opening, and I just kept walking through them. And I'm not really risk adverse. I'm not one to say, well, if I do this, this is going to happen. I said, well, you know what? This is a great opportunity. I've worked this hard. Let me see what comes of it. And I mean, I still remember when I first joined the coaching staff at Carleton University back in 2010, and I had just come from Algonquin College. I was coaching there too as well. But I just remember it was like such a surreal moment for me. I was like, I'm back kind of where I started, like the program that shaped me into the man that I am and the person that I am. I'm now here, and I get to do that with the next generation of Carleton players. So that was such a special moment for me. And then 6 years later, when Coach Mackey and I started talking about, he was looking at moving on and what I thought. And again, it was another door that was being opened. And I felt at that time that, yeah, this is something I wanted to try and I wanted to do. And I thought I was ready for it. And, I jumped into it, didn't think anything of it. And, and here we are. I mean, I'm talking about 4 years later, head coach of the program. And it's been quite the ride. I mean, 4 years has gone by so quickly. I mean, I can't believe that, Cris is on the verge of graduating and moving on. And it's been an incredible experience. I mean, I would never, change anything. My journey has allowed me to meet many different people and all of that have influenced me in some shape or form. And the players and the athletes I've gotten to work with. I mean, some are, many of them are local players here in the city, and some are international, and some are, national. And it's been great. The game has given me so much, and I'm so happy that I can give back, in some form to the members of my team and people of the community as well.
Now, it really seems like you're over the last 20 years, you've just become so, ingrained into the soccer community in Ottawa. And I'm wondering if you could provide some insight, like, so Cris is, he's chosen his pathway, and now he's got a chance to have a go at a pro career. How have the pathways available to kids in Ottawa changed over the last 20 years?
Oh, it's exploded. I mean, I remember even when I was playing, there was talk around, yeah, when you finish university, you can try and go and see, if you can go overseas and play. But for me, that wasn't something I wanted to pursue. It wasn't something that was, that I wanted to do personally. Ottawa Wizards came into the city, and I said, okay, it's local. I wouldn't mind playing for them. But I mean, now there are opportunities all over. And that's why when I made the comment, there is no set pathway. There isn't. I mean, I've seen kids now at the age of 12 go overseas. I've seen kids now at the age of 18, 19, 20, make a living, playing in different parts of Europe, playing in South America. And now you're seeing kids have the opportunity to play at home in Canada. And I just feel like now the game is now so much more accessible to players here in Canada, particularly here now in Ottawa. We have a local team here in Ottawa. But the game has exploded. The kids now have local players that they can look up to. I mean, you have guys that play for my university at Carleton, and you also have guys like Jonathan David who grew up, in Ottawa, are now playing, over in the
Top
French
of France.
League. Yeah, and I mean, it's phenomenal. I mean, interesting story. I mean, you go back, 4 or 5 years ago, and I remember, Jonathan David playing in our indoor tournament. And it's insane when you think about that, right? But I mean, these are what kids are looking at, and they're seeing that it's accessible. I always want to make sure that kids understand there is no set pathway. There is none. I think you always just got to be prepared for when that opportunity presents itself. And if you're ready for that opportunity, then you'll take it, right? And that's what I think it is.
Speaking of playing indoors, when do you guys think is the best time to move to the dome? Is that like when you just play until the snow flies, or is it like -10 and you're inside? Like when's the best time?
I mean, I like to stay outside as long as possible. I mean, we have some interesting rules with regards to, when you can wear track pants, when you wear gloves, when you can wear neck warmers, when you can wear toques. I mean, we kind of have a little gauge. When the first snowfall, we say, okay, no pants, maybe some gloves. And then we kind of build it up from there. And by the time that guys are wearing full, gear, we kick it up a notch. We'll say, okay, now it's time to go inside. But we kind of have like a ranking system. Yeah, pants. We'll let the pants come out, the toques. But after that, okay, now it's time to go inside.
Chris?
Yeah, no comment on that for sure.
I'm sure Chris would like to go inside much sooner than I would think. But I mean, it's an outdoor sport. We live in Canada. Coach. Yeah, we live in Canada. And our national tournament for the past, I want to say 2 years now, we played in snow.
Yeah.
Maybe 3, except for BC when we went to UBC in 2018. There was no snow there. But I mean, the year before that in Thompson River, it was snow. 2019 we
versus
played University of Montreal. It was snow, so it's like, why are we rushing inside for? I mean, if our expectation is to be competing for a national title, then we need to get acclimatized as quickly as possible.
Right on. So Chris, now that you're drafted, like, what are the next steps for you? Like, has Mista giving you any direction? Has he offered any words to you?
Not yet. I've talked to Fernando a bit, but right now I know they're still in the building process of the club and acquiring new players. I know a lot of them are still in Madrid. So right now it's just about me getting ready for the training camp process, and then once the training camp comes along, then it's just about performing and then hopefully getting a secure roster spot. And then once that happens, is hopefully getting as many minutes as possible and proving myself to the team that I'm a capable player and someone that they could count on as well.
I think one of my last questions is for Kwesi again, actually. I wonder what your overall impression of the draft is, because it's new for it's new for soccer in this country. Is it good that the draft exists?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think it's such a unique partnership that the CPL has with USports, which is the governing body of university sport here in Canada. I mean, there's nowhere else in the world where you can be a 19-year-old attending a university, playing for your university team, get drafted, and still have the ability to come back to your university and play and continue your education. There is no other setup like that. I think the CPL and USport hit the nail on the head with that, right? I mean, I think education is extremely important, but I also think giving the opportunity for these young players to pursue their dream is just as important. And at this point right now, you're not necessarily making them have to make a decision between the two. The other part of it, I think what's important is that we as a country, we as a community, as a soccer community, are also learning about the professional side of the sport, right? And I think that's something is also an educational platform for young university athletes, because I mean they've played club soccer, and then a lot of them move into the university stream or the college stream. Professional is entirely different. That world is entirely different. I mean, you're talking about coaches, I need to get results to keep their jobs. I mean, they're looking at players, not just locally, but they're looking at players internationally. So they have so many other players to be able to select from. You're talking about contracts. You're talking about, being able to spend your days where you're training, with the team. And then the rest of your day consists of, either, team meetings or individuals, or just for yourself, it's just the understanding of rest and nutrition, sleep, So I think it's such an important partnership. And what the CPL is bringing is not just a professional league, but they're just bringing a better understanding of what it means to be a professional, how to go about preparing yourself, how to live that life, and how to be successful at it. I think, we see all the glitz and the glamour on social, and we think that's what it is, but you don't really get to see the behind the scenes of these professional clubs. You don't really see how much work these athletes have to put in, or the sacrifice that they also have to put in as well, right? I mean, it's great that Cris has been drafted, but and my other two players have been drafted as well. But now, yeah, as Cris just alluded to, he now needs to go and prove himself in that environment. He needs to show his consistency. He needs to show that, I'm warranted for minutes. I can help this team achieve its goals, right? So it's great that you're drafted and the excitement, that's fantastic. But now your mind needs to now shift. And now you need to really focus on what is it I need to be as a professional? How do I stay successful, right?
That's awesome. I'm going to save my last question for Cris. So Cris, I don't know if, what the next few months are going to look like. If, I know last year players were invited to in like Madrid, at the Metropolitano. So I don't know if you're going to be there or like a TD place, but your first day with the club, you're walking in, you got your earphones on. What song are you playing to get yourself ready?
Oh, that's a tough one. I'm not sure about it. The thing about me is I love I go through artists. It always changes. So it depends on the mood. I can't just focus on one song too much, and I get a little tired of it. So it's always shuffling. It's always shuffling. Depends how I'm feeling. If it's before a game, maybe a song that's gonna calm me down, just get me in my happy place, and I know I'm gonna do what I love, And if it's if I know I'm about to run for practice, then maybe a little more intense song to get me a little more fired up, and I know I need to use So
tell you what brings you to your happy place, Cris?
Oh, well, I'm not gonna lie. I love Spanish music. I love country music. Those two songs that just brings joy, brings joy for sure. And definitely a little EDM, little some beats, So that's always enjoyment as well. But no, I can't just say, can't really put my finger on just one particular song or one particular artist. I'm very diverse in that sense, and those definitely Spanish because of the football culture just got me hooked on it. I have a few Spanish friends that got me hooked on it a few years ago, and I've never looked back since.
Well, if you're heading to Madrid, hopefully you'll just fit right in.
There you go. Hopefully.
Fingers crossed for you. I hope you enjoyed that chat with Cris Malekos and Kwesi Loney. We want to thank them both for joining. And actually, I think that's going to wrap things up for episode 1 of the Stepover. I want to thank you for joining. Remember to like and subscribe on whatever app you're using. 5 stars, all that stuff. Or don't. I'm not your parent. You can do what you want. What you do is your business. But I do hope you'll join for episode 2. And 3, 4. We got lots more in the pipeline. What the? Oh, no. I said get! We'll see ya. Get! Bad studio audience. Bad!